Thank you for joining us for CUCSA's year-end reports. We are now going to hear from the Sustainable Workforce Workgroup on their findings and recommendations. I would like to introduce Workgroup Chair Melissa Romanus.
Thank you, Jen. As Jen just mentioned, my name is Melissa Romanus, and I'm from Berkeley Lab, and I am this year's Workgroup Lead for Sustainable Workforce. I'm joined by my colleagues Katie Erbinovich from Berkeley, Kristen Ikeda Yoza from Santa Barbara, Mahjabeen Yucekul from Office of the President, Shirley Salado from Agriculture and Natural Resources, and Lumpy Ervin from UC Santa Cruz. This is the second consecutive year that CUCSA has convened a Sustainable Workforce Workgroup, which is a reflection of how persistent and urgent these issues are across the UC. Our focus this year was on identifying strategies to attract and retain talent, reduce administrative burnout, and support flexible work arrangements. The work group's mission is twofold: to highlight how staffing constraints impact policy-covered staff, and to advance practices that promote both sustainable workloads and meaningful support for the people doing the work. With that mission in mind, we also wanted to understand what data already exists to help us frame the problem, especially around staffing, workload, and the evolving workplace. Now, Katie will walk us through some of those existing insights that helped inform where we focus this year.
Thank you, Melissa. So as Melissa mentioned, we were focused on leveraging the existing data and coming up with actionable items as a part of this year's Sustainable Workforce Workgroup. This graph probably looks familiar as our colleagues within the compensation work group shared it as well. And so we're not going to go over compensation, even though that is the highest concern that was listed as part of the survey. And instead, we're focusing on kind of the next three, in particular, overwork, career development, and flexible work. And part of what we are also trying to do as our focus is making sure that we have these workforce strategies that promote equitable staffing and manageable workloads, professional development and career growth, staff well-being and respect-driven culture, long-term resilience, even in times of hardship. And in particular, we want to make sure that UC remains an exemplary employer of choice where staff can thrive, not just survive, especially in times of adversity. And with that, I will pass it over to Kristen.
Thank you, Katie. I'm here to discuss challenges impacting everyone at the UC. Fewer resources are one of our current biggest impacts, as well as hiring freezes, amplifying existing pressure to staff, budgeting constraints, and also the high risk of burnout, which is threatening productivity and retention. Through my findings to build more sustainability and resilience, the topics of psychological safety, which is essential to open dialogue and problem solving, as well as open communication, which is a key to understanding and addressing problems and challenges, advocating by empowering staff to voice needs and come up with ideas and suggest improvements, and also well-being, which is central to sustainable performance and engagement. These guides are central ideas I've had for supervisors to focus and staff to focus on different ideas we can use together, such as the key principles of sustainable work, such like proactive workload management, and also protecting workplace well-being, as well as why these strategies are important and why they matter, ideas on gaining buy-in, as well as example conversations from both the staff perspective and supervisor's perspective on it, with experiences and tips that you can use to have conversations going from both sides. These experiences and recommendations are easy to distribute. They're guides that are accessible to all teams. They could be integrated into both onboarding procedures and also into our normal management practices. We can champion them through being able to actively endorse them and promote them, the guide's adoption across the UC, as well as normalizing making well-being a conversation that is standard practice among us. Why now? I feel that Resilience is a key for us at this time where we are faced with so many challenges. These guides offer a concise 4 to 5 page, easy to understand and apply solutions, as well as being actionable, practical steps for real world application. They are low cost with minimal effort to get to all of staff on websites or copies of PDFs, links, as well as being high impact as they can help us mitigate burnout and also boost productivity. I'd now like to pass it on to Mahjabeen to talk about generative AI.
Thank you, Kristen. We have 6 recommendations related to generative AI based on our findings for our UC locations. We investigated tools, trainings, governance, organizational structure to arrive at these recommendations. We also reviewed best practices from industry and consulted experts. We are thankful to System-Wide AI Council and OP leaders for their time and sharing their expertise with us. Our first recommendation is for AI literacy program. We recommend literacy program that incorporates all 4 aspects mentioned in EDUCAUSE report: technical, practical, ethical, and evaluative. We recommend targeted training programs and one that incorporates two-way conversation. Our second recommendation relates to tools and infrastructure. Our report lists the tools available at each location, and we recommend more uniformity in access to these tools and also a culture of experimentation so that staff can determine what's best for their work scenario, for their personal preference. To go beyond personal productivity with leveraging these tools, we need more process maturity. We need to look at processes at higher level and determine what tool. I mean, Gen AI is one of those tools. What tool would work and how we should rearrange processes to reduce admin workload, to reduce burnout. Gardner recommends dedicated leader to orchestrate all the efforts related to AI. In accordance with that, we think it will be great to have a chief AI officer, system-wide level, as well as location, and some locations have started incorporating that role. Current structure is with AI consults, which are volunteer roles, but as things mature, we need dedicated resources, and that will also enable more staff voices through staff assembly, since one of our findings is that staff is feeling that they don't have voice in the decision-making process at this point. We recommend survey to assess staff attitude and comfort level with technology, Gen AI. We have learned that UC has done similar surveys for students and faculty, so we are missing one data point, and that information will inform us next steps to integrate the technology. And lastly, we recommend resource guide, comprehensive and up-to-date, so that our location staff can access and utilize it. Another of our finding is that awareness of what's presently available is low. And so building these resources and engaging staff assembly and CUCSA in increasing the awareness would improve the leveraging of these technologies and benefiting from that. With that, I will hand it over to Shirley to discuss upskilling.
Thank you, Mahjabeen. So we currently have some workforce challenges. So how can we transform these challenges into opportunities through strategic professional development, and why upskilling matters more now than ever? We have limited ability to hire new talent, which requires maximizing our existing workforce potential. Industry leaders prioritize professional development to retain top talent, and employees are increasingly expecting growth and skill development. Future-proofing our workforce against rapid technological changes is important for right now. Some of the key success factors would be adopting proven models or parts of it, such as our UCI's Evolve program, like a stretch assignments that can offer staff to observe or have discussions about new roles or hands-on experience. Having AI integration, personalizing learning platforms for skill gap assessment, and leadership support management commitment to fostering learning culture. Some of the implementation strategies on our approach would be a needs assessment, combining our quantitative data and our qualitative staff stories, accessible programs like online hybrid options with flexible scheduling, system-wide or system collaboration, sharing resources and best practices is wonderful. We should have that. And continuous evaluation with regular surveys and outcome tracking for improvement. Expected benefits would be for both the employee and UC. Employee would be enhancing our job satisfaction and career growth with higher retention and commitment, and broader skill sets for changing demands. The UC would benefit from lower administrative burdens via AI implementation or automation, and progress on equity and inclusion. Some of the key recommendations and strategic goal in summary is expanding the career pathways, integrating AI tools, fostering a learning culture, and conducting regular assessments. We need to build a future-ready workforce that thrives during periods of constraint and change, upskilling and career development. And now I'd like to pass it on to Melissa so she can speak more about flex work.
Thanks, Shirley. Alongside upskilling, flexible work is one of the few levers we have to retain and support staff in a constrained environment. For many policy-covered staff, hybrid or remote options have helped offset the rising cost of commuting, parking, and living near campus, especially as compensation hasn't always kept pace. It's also an operational win, reducing pressure on space, utilities, and facilities that would otherwise require costly upgrades. Nationally, a 2023 CUPA HR survey found that 2/3 of higher education employees believe most of their work can be done remotely and would prefer hybrid or remote options. Yet 2/3 are still required to work mostly or fully on site. That kind of disconnect risks burnout, disengagement, and attrition. This year, we've also started to see return to office mandates tied to budget concerns, but often without clear articulation of the benefit, which can create further confusion and mistrust. A 2024 University of Pittsburgh study found that RTO mandates among S&P 500 firms didn't improve financial performance, but did reduce employee satisfaction. That's why clarity, consistency, and fairness in how we approach flexible work has never been more important. As part of our research, we reviewed UC policies across locations and found several inconsistencies in expectations, documentation, and staff input regarding flexible work. That work, which will be available in our final report, shaped the recommendations we're about to share. First, policies should be documented and transparent, including how and when they can change. If a modality can be revoked, staff should know that upfront. Job listings and agreements should avoid vague language like hybrid and instead spell out the number of days or hours expected on site. When return to office decisions are being considered, involve staff in the conversation early and explain the operational reasons when changes are necessary. We also need consistent support and accountability for supervisors, so the implementation doesn't vary widely between teams. Next, tracking work modality through UC Path or local HR tools can help campuses plan space and ensure fair application across roles. Also, flexibility loses its value when it shifts hidden burdens, from commute and parking costs to disruptions in childcare or caregiving. These impacts must be considered when assigning on-site work. Lastly, there should be intentional review of equity across similar roles to avoid favoritism or inconsistency. As we've shown, building a sustainable workforce requires action across multiple fronts, but policies alone don't tell the whole story. The real story is in how these decisions play out for the people doing the work every day. To bring that perspective forward, I'll hand it over to Lumpy, who will share stories from UC staff that bring these challenges and opportunities to life.
All right, thank you, Melissa. So I started off trying to reach out to UC budget offices to see how the UCs track vacant and held positions. Traditional methods to get this info, I hit roadblocks, like asking why is someone from UC Santa Cruz asking about UCSF's staffing transparency, or no answers at all from other UCs. Per recommendation from Jay Henderson from UCOP, talking about the strongest impact would be to collect staff stories. So I diverted my focus to get staff stories across all UCs, to get a collection of staff experiences reflecting real-world impacts of resource constraints. The approach was to have a flexible participation for staff by either a Zoom interview or them answering a set of questions through email that they wanted to speak to. Questions explored workload, burnout, team dynamics, time off barriers, and morale. Recommendations going forward is to establish an ongoing CUCSA-supported structure for continuing to collect these stories, use these stories to complement the qualitative reporting, and advocate more effectively with the regions and UCOP. This graph shows across 3 stories that I was able to collect how often these issues were mentioned in the stories. And as you can see, there's a lot of common answers here. With that, I'll give it back to Melissa for our conclusion.
Thanks, Lumpy. Throughout this presentation, we've shared strategies to build a more sustainable and resilient UC workforce, starting with upskilling and career development to help staff grow, even during budget constraints. We heard about the importance of giving managers clear tools to lead consistently, and the need for flexible work policies that are equitable, transparent, and thoughtfully implemented. And as generative AI becomes more integrated into our work, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to make sure it supports staff rather than replaces them or overwhelms them. Across all these areas, a common thread emerges. When staff feel supported, heard, and are given room to thrive, we strengthen the institution as a whole. And these aren't just ideas, they're practical pathways forward. Together, we can continue building a UC where staff are not just present, but empowered to lead, innovate, and stay. We'd love to discuss our recommendations with you at the CUCSA Town Hall on Tuesday, July 8th at 11 a.m. Additionally, our full work group report is linked in the video description, as well as my email if you have any questions or comments about our recommendations. Thank you for your time.